shoulders of giants. May we give Undata Opa another round of applause. He's standing here, he's saying he is representing the class of 76. And as young people, I believe that is something we should take to heart and realize the people that have paved the way for all of us to talk about the access that we are talking about, to have the opportunities that we have in this moment. So, one more time, thank you, Ntate Opa. Now to join me on stage, I'd like to welcome President of the South African Youth Council, Mr. Oagile Louw. Are we tweeting? Are we texting? Are we on all social media platforms? Facebook? Is it still relevant, or are we on TikTok? Don't forget the hashtags.
Thanks, Program Director, Ms. Feziwe Mpaku, Provincial Chairperson of the South African Youth Council in Gauteng, Mr. Benem Kabele, the Ward Councillor in Ward 39, Mr. Ntate Modise, Minister of Young People, Women and People with Disability, Menkozana Zuma, Deputy Minister of Sports, Meno Kawe Mafu, Executive Chairperson of the NYDA, Mr. Sanda Luwaka, and board members present here today. The Ministry of Sports in the Free State, Medi Makatso Mahasa, a rep of June Foundation, Tate Upamoloto, families of the June 16 uprising victims, panelists, and guests. Today we gather here under the theme Accelerating Youth Economic Emancipation for a Sustainable Future. The theme emphasizes the essence of our aspirations as young South Africans. It reflects our determination to break free from the shackles of economic inequality and create a future that is sustainable, prosperous, and inclusive for all. However, as we come together to celebrate our youth and their potential, our hearts are heavy with the recent tragedy that has befallen Palesa Malachi, a 17-year-old student who was brutally raped and murdered on her way home from school in Soshanguve. Our thoughts and prayers go out to her family and the community. As we stand united against such acts of violence, it is a painful reminder that despite our progress, there are still challenges we face in ensuring the safety and well-being of our young people. We must continue to work tirelessly to protect and empower them, ensuring that they pursue their dreams without fear. As we embark on the Youth Month, let us recommit ourselves to the betterment of our nation. Let us prioritize our youth economic emancipation, recognizing that it is through economic empowerment that we can create a sustainable and prosperous future. We must foster an environment that encourages entrepreneurship, job creation, and skills empowerment. Our government, private sector, civil society, and education institutions must collaborate to provide young people with necessary resources, mentorship, and opportunities to thrive. Moreover, we must champion gender equality, inclusivity, and rights of persons with disability. Our strength lies in our diversity, and we must ensure that no young person is left behind. We must eradicate discrimination, dismantle barriers, and create a level playing field for all young people. In the same spirit of solidarity, I'm proud to announce that South African Youth Council recently participated in an international conference on supporting the Sudanese youth at the invitation of the Sudanese Youth Council. We joined hands with global leaders to address the conflicts raging in Sudan. Our message of support and solidarity resonated with the Sudanese youth as we committed ourselves to working together towards lasting peace and relief for their nation. Today, I call upon young people of South Africa to lend their support to the youth of Sudan, as well as to stand in solidarity with the youth of Palestine, Western Sahara, and all young people around the world facing various challenges. Together we can make a difference. In conclusion, I urge each and every one of you to be agent of change. Let us harness our collective power, passion, and creativity to shape a brighter future for our country. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Low. He says we must be agent of change. Young people, this is upon you. Be the agents of change. Be the change that you want to see in this country, in this world. To continue with our program, I'd like to invite on stage the Deputy Minister, Omamnokawe Mafu, of Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, who will then tell us more about the role of the Department of Arts and Culture in nation building. Omamnokawe. Leli lizwe
elamakhosikazi asoze saphela amandla elilizwe lelamakhosikazi asoze saphela amandla asoze saphela amandla asoze saphela amandla. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Program Director, Ms. Fezi Mpaka. Greetings to Umamu Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, the Minister of the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, NYDA Board Member, Chair, Asanda Luwata, and all the members of the NYDA board that are here, the Honorable Free State MEC for Sport, Arts and Culture, my daughter, Timakatso Mahasa, she knows. Don't look at her being tall. She's definitely my daughter. Ntate Opa Muloto of the June 16 Foundation, thank you for reminding us that this freedom was not free. People died for this freedom. Thank you so much. Mr. Wakhilelo of the SA Youth Council, Siyabonga Baba. Sanbonani. Oh, okay. As the National Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, it remains our task to coordinate the government's commemorative program, which we see as one of the foremost footholds to promote social cohesion and nation building. The national days are an important component of that commemorative program. In this month in particular, South Africa will pause as it remembers the gallant generation of June 16, 1976. And of course, we do this month with the Department of Women, Youth, Persons and People with Disabilities, because young people are there in that department. Now, as Frantz Fanon once said, that every generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission. Today's generation, against all odds and well-wind, continues to self-discover and define its mission in several fronts. This year, we are commemorating the Youth Month under the theme, Accelerating Collaborations and Opportunities to Transform the Lives of the Youth. In line with the theme, this year's program is multifaceted. It's a multifaceted one, bringing together multidisciplinary stakeholders, covering sport, education, arts, corporate entrepreneurship, business, and sciences, all in the quest to provide the young people with different opportunities through these collaborations. To keep the story of June 1976 ingrained in the nation's psyche, it would be important that it be told and retold. Not to depress society, but to revive ourselves of this memory of our great tragedy, so that we aim much higher as we endeavor to create a better tomorrow against the stubborn battle of unemployment, of poverty, and inequality. As we collectively waged war against these socio-economic challenges, we must be clear-eyed and determined about our way forward, utilizing maximally the provided opportunities, such as the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention, and initiated its own youth development and empowerment initiatives to support young people. Through this program alone, we, as the department, had graduated about 21 interns, and we are still busy with 27, and 13 additional ones have found better jobs somewhere. We hope to be able to absorb more. The Presidential Employment Stimulus Program, through which about 30,000 jobs are counted through the employment multiplier model, and placing 177 interns during the direct employment in different workplaces, which is managed by us. The NYDA branches that remain open for business, assisting startups as new entries into the market. And we really hope that there will be better collaboration between us as the department and yourselves, Asanda, to make sure that we reach more young people out of these programs. The current generation of young people isn't only venturing into its mission through academic means, but also through sport. It has been my observation that, unlike the 1976 generation, there has been a notable and encouraging rise in number of women leaders in the current generation around the issue of sport, also even in other areas. This is evident in the leadership of organizations like NYDA, which is predominantly led by women, as well as in sport, just to mention a few. South African women in sport are leading the way as path breakers and trailblazers. I'm speaking about the likes of Abo Andile Dlamini, Abo Lara van Niekerk in swimming. Andile is in soccer, those that don't know her. Nokolo Tsesane, which is a soccer player. Nolusindi Soboy, who's playing rugby. Khutatso Munchane, who's a wheelchair tennis player. Bongi Wemsomi, the captain of netball. And Tatiana Skumaka, who is a swimmer. Very soon, we will be coming back to you as the department to report to our sector and the South African people of the progress we have made in critical developmental and policy areas, and paint a picture of how our collective future looks as a sector. It is often said that we must strive until there is a silver lining. I'm rather anticipating a golden lining in the end. Nothing can be more fitting in honoring the struggles of yesteryear's generation than providing an enabling environment for our young people today. So our struggles of today are a springboard for our tomorrow's prosperous future. As you navigate this tough terrain, do not let go of this South African dream. It is in your hands. It is in our hands, together. Like our father of the nation, our liberation icon, Babu Nelson Mandela once said, "To the youth of today, I have a wish to be script writers of your destiny and feature yourselves as stars that showed the way towards a brighter future. Program Director, thank you very much for your kindness for allowing me to pass this message of the department. And I also know that you are going to have a very vibrant and successive event in Free State in Bloemfontein. Thank you so much.
Izandla bo. Thank you so much, Deputy Minister, and we are grateful for the commitment that you've made here today. Now we are getting to a different part of our program, where we will then be having a in-depth discussion with regards to our journeys and our generational missions. To welcome on stage, I'd like to call upon our moderator, Ms. Thandiwe Msomi, who will then introduce her panelists. Can we give her a round of applause?
Sanbonani, Ninjan. Happy Youth Month. How are young people feeling? Are we feeling good? Awesome, awesome. As introduced, Igama is Thandiwe Msomi, and I serve as the national spokesperson of the South African Youth Economic Council, and I'm very honored to have had this invite by the NYDA to facilitate today's panel discussion. I'm going to call up my panelists one by one, and as you come, please do take your seats on the stage. First up, I'd like to call Dr. Mama Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, the Minister of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities. She will be followed by Mr. Tulisa Ndlela, an NYDA board member. I'd also like to call upon the stage Ayabonga Buthelezi, a learner of Emadaleni Secondary School. And then lastly, I'd like to call upon my colleague at the South African Youth Economic Council, Bonga Makanya, onto the stage. You can sit here now. Yeah. Can I please request handheld mics for my panelists, please?
Karen Njwala.
We need one more chair. Great, thank you so much. Is my lapel mic on? Cool. Thank you so much to all of my panelists for joining me today as we launch the NYDA program. And to kick off the program, I want to start off by a quote that was said by Mr. Kofi Annan, the former Secretary General of the United Nations. He once said, "Have confidence in young people, give them a chance, and they will surprise you." And the NYDA this month is looking at themes such as unemployment, lack of technology, and education inequality as issues that need to be addressed this month and throughout the year to ensure that young people have access to opportunity. And so to kick off the panel, I'm going to start off with you. As someone who was involved in the struggle for liberation in South Africa very intensely, how would you say the opportunities that were in existence for young people then are different from the opportunities that exist now for young people? And what inspiration can Abatabasha draw from the liberation movement in the class of 1976 to address the economic issues that we have today?
Thank you very much for that question, and thank you very much for today. I think you've had from the foundation, the opportunities of those days were very limited for young black people. For the white young people, it was great. They had free compulsory education, they had job reservation, they didn't experience unemployment. Whether they passed or didn't pass, their jobs were reserved, and they lived where they wanted to live. They owned land. So the opportunities were different. For a young black person, you didn't have free compulsory education. But if you look at today, everyone has access to education. But the young people those days decided that they were going to change their situation. They are going to take part in changing their situation. They are not going to wait for somebody else to change their situation. They were going to change it themselves. And they participated in various stages of the struggle. It's not just 1976. The Mandelas started, others had started before the Mandelas. So from the time the colonizers came, young people fought wars against the colonizers. So they always were at the forefront of changing their situation. Now you say I must compare the opportunities with today. Today, young people have lots of opportunities. I'm not saying the situation is perfect, but let's start with education. No young person can say they are denied education because they are young or black or they are a woman or a man. There's access to education. I hear young people saying a lot about what they expect, but I don't hear them saying what their responsibility is. They don't even say, we want access to education, our responsibility is to pass. They don't even mention that as a responsibility, but it is their responsibility. So young people have lots of rights this time, but they also have responsibilities, which we don't seem to emphasize. I was listening very carefully to what Ms. Pillay said. It was all about what they expect, not what the responsibilities. Every right must go with the responsibility. She was talking about being at vets. It was the young people of this country who fought for that opportunity. During those days, we were not allowed to go to vets. We could only go to so-called black universities. Vets was for whites. If you were to go to vets, you had to apply it. Government had to give you a special permit and all that. So I think the opportunities are better, even health, access to health. I'm not saying it's perfect, don't get me wrong. There's still a lot more to be done, but there's a lot that has been achieved if you compare with where we were those days. Women, young women, those days, I grew up in Natal. There was something called the Natal Code. If you were a woman, it didn't matter how old you were a minor. If you wanted to go and get an overdraft, even if you were working, you needed a man to go and sign for you. If you wanted to buy something on credit, even if you were working, you needed a man to go and sign for you. You could even get your son who doesn't work to go and sign for you when you are working, because you were a minor. So a lot has changed, because none of us are minors now. But also, black women were at the bottom of the ladder, because you were discriminated according to race, you were discriminated according to class and gender. So we always said women, black women had triple oppression, which we have moved from that triple oppression. Yes, we are not at the point where we can say women, especially black women, are equal, but there is a lot of improvement. There is still a lot that needs to be done. Young people with disability had even the worst. There is a lot that has improved, but there is still a lot more that needs to be done for young people. The salary gap. During those days, if you were a black woman doctor, you were paid less than a white male doctor, less than a white woman doctor, less than a black male doctor. So a lot has changed, a lot more needs to change. But I also want to say to young people, you must be organized a lot more than you are. It's important to be organized, because when you are organized, you can push the frontiers much faster. It's important to be organized. I heard something that confused me from what was said earlier, that there are young people who don't vote because there was blame on other people, which confused me. Because the right to vote was fought for very hard. During those days, it was only white people who voted, and later it was the tricameral parliament. Black people were not allowed to vote. Young people, who is stopping you from voting? I don't understand that part. Maybe it's because I'm old, I don't understand young people's things. Who is stopping you from voting? You register to vote and you go and vote. And voting is very important because it determines who runs the country. It determines what policies get implemented. It determines part of your future. So not going to vote is actually dereliction of duty for young people. I think young people must mobilize. You must get every young person to register. Now you all have smartphones, and you can go around assisting young people to register online. You don't even have to go to the offices anymore. And you can assist those young people who may not have smartphones. I think voting is critical for young people. They must go and vote. And you, as the leadership, must organize them to do so.
I think that you've unpacked a lot of issues that must be addressed in this Youth Month. And I think I'd like to take the conversation to Bonga and Mr. Tulisa, because the Minister has unpacked a lot of issues around what the obstacles are and what we still need to do further to ensure that young people can actually maximize on these opportunities that exist. And so from your experience, Mr. Tulisa Ndlela, and your experience, Bonga, in youth development issues and engaging with young people who want to be a part of the mainstream economy and access opportunity, what are those barriers and what work needs to be done to address those? And I think we can start with you, Mr. Tulisa.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Facilitator. And I think for me, in the engagements, and I'll speak more on the entrepreneurial side of young people, in the engagement with young people right across the country who in large part operate very small to medium scale businesses, the biggest issue is around access to market opportunities. When I say market opportunities, the state remains the biggest buyer of any goods or services in this economy, and it's going to be for the longest time ever. So if that is correct and is to be accepted that in the next 20 to 30 years that will remain the case, then how the state procures and how the state looks for services must be deliberate insofar as its lineage towards young people or its biasness towards young people for two reasons. One, your average small to medium enterprise employs more people than a multinational, because the multinational has access to machinery and things like that. So because they are small, they are labor intensive. So if your procurement and your sourcing strategy is biased towards small to medium enterprises, it then allows you to give that aspect. But two, from a economic point of view, and I'm not an economist, but I once read an article by an American economist, Ha-Joon Chang, who in that article he argues that countries of the developed north, simply puts the G7, if you look at them and how they rose to where they are today, they used to use economic protectionist policies, import substitution, and they were protecting their domestic industries. And then once they reached the top of the tree, if I may use that analogy, they then started kicking away the ladder. They started talking to us about your World Trade Organization, fair trade. But these concepts, if you look at them, they are fair insofar as equalizing the playing field between those who have resources and those who don't, so that those who don't have resources, mineral resources, can benefit from the extraction economies, that they will take their resources all the way out. So, I mean, for me, those two things say to me, if we could address the import substitutions, the protectionist, and we lift up the ladder. I call it lifting up the ladder because I tend to agree with Ha-Joon Chang. The ladder has been kicked away by principally economies of the global north. You lift up the ladder, you allow developing economies, those who are endowed with coal, allow them to use coal in order to better their economies. Those who have, and then maybe much later, when in a better spot, then you can have the nice to haves, you can talk about the other nice to haves, and I'm not in any way saying renewables are not important, but I'm saying right now, when we are drowning, when the economy is drowning, when today in Joburg CBD, before I came here, I tried to get Chicken Licken, and when I got there, they closed and they told me you can't open until it's 12 because load shedding will finish at 12, and until 12, and between the employer and the people that work there, they've agreed to shorten the hours. So, I mean, when we're in that situation, we need to explore every opportunity. And going back to my first point, the only way to assist small to medium enterprises is maybe to relook at the procurement legislation. Because right now, when it says procurement is based on price, it means procurement is always going to go to the big established companies, because there's no way you're going to bid in any construction project, WBHO or any of the big five construction companies, because they have got the economies of scales and they've been doing it for many years, and they're always going to bid you at a price. So if that remains our sourcing strategy, then we are likely to replicate some of these things. And lastly, facilitator, I do believe that if we can change that thinking, support more small to medium enterprises in state procurement now, even the private sector could follow suit, but they are not in any incentive to do that, because even the enterprise development funds and those kind of budgets don't go to young people. They don't benefit young people. So in the end, we've got to get to a point where we change at a policy level, but also us as young people we need to be able to knock a little bit more on these doors. And I make an example with the NYDA. You know, I meet a lot of young people and they say to me, we don't get funding in the NYDA. And how I end that conversation, I just ask you for your GR number. If you don't have a GR number, I know then you've never applied at the NYDA, because there's no way your application ends without you being emailed a GR number. So a lot of young people say to, but you don't get, and they say, okay, what's your GR number? Send me, let me try and check. And then they'll start saying, no, I think my email, I can't remember my password, and you know, they are now all of a sudden stories. So it's good to speak on Twitter. I don't have a problem with that, but maybe before you go and speak against, maybe start by applying, you know. And once you've applied, then you can say we don't get assistance. Because a lot of the people that say they don't get assistance, you'll find that when you follow up, they wouldn't have in any way applied, you know. It's just a generalization that it sounds nice, it gets more likes to say we don't get assistance in the NYDA. And when you follow up, people haven't even applied. Thank you.
No, thanks, Somlom, and greetings, Minister, TM, and all esteemed guests. Just a thank you to the NYDA for putting together this program, and Happy Youth Month, like you had said. I think, I mean, of course, it's not happy because the state of young people in South Africa is very bad. So I think the question you asked me was, what are some of the barriers that young people face in terms of participation, and what are some of the challenges that they face? And I mean, the first points of departure is to acknowledge that young people of South Africa have lost hope in terms of anything, in terms of participation in the economy, the level of joblessness, high education crisis, basic education crises. So we're in a state of complete despondency. And that's reflected in when you look at some of the voter turnouts every election year. You can see that young people don't see their hopes and aspirations through the ballot. And obviously that needs to change through, you know, the creation of a state that starts to work for young people, that starts to reflect the hopes and aspirations of young people. And that's why we commend the NYDA for putting together this program. Some of the deep challenges that face, you know, it's layered. There's a job creation challenge, where when young people, you tell us to go to school, young people go to school, they attain a tertiary qualification, and when they go seek employment, there are no jobs in the market for them to be absorbed. So we have a huge you know, job creation crisis at that level. Those who want to own businesses and then say they want to be entrepreneurs, own SMMEs, you find that there's poor funding mechanisms and poor business support programs within government. Today, the NYDA tells us every day that they support young people. And of course, maybe it's not their own making because they don't create themselves. They come into an organization that has been legislated by cabinet and parliament and have all these bureaucratic challenges. But as a young person in South Africa, if you want to meaningfully participate in this economy and own a business in one of the strategic sectors, be it mining, be it transport, be it construction, be any of the strategic sectors of South Africa, the NYDA cannot assist you with anything simply because they have a funding criteria which limits that. Number one, there's a cap of 50,000 or 200,000. If a mine tomorrow was to give me a contract to supply one truck and say, yeah, just come with a truck, go and buy a truck, it's yours. And I go to Tulisa or I go to Asanda or Karabo or Wasim and say, I have a contract, please fund me. They'll tell you our cap is 200,000. Now, aggregate that across the entire economy in terms of the strategic sectors, the NYDA can't finance or support meaningful youth participation in the economy because of the barriers that it has in terms of policy. So the first point of departure is to capacitate the NYDA, because young people see the NYDA as their vehicle towards their hopes and aspirations of a better economic future. And therefore, you must broaden some of the capital infrastructure that's within the NYDA for young people to access some of those resources, because the time of having box-ticking exercises of entities which are just there to say and report back in Parliament, which we're doing something for youth because we have this structure called NYDA, or we have a ministry called Women, Youth, and People Living with Disabilities. But when you look at the budget items from Treasury, you find that the Ministry of Women, Youth, and Disabilities has the lowest budget. Yet government tells us every day that the burning challenge of South Africa is the fact that young people are unemployed and that women are outside the strategic sectors of the economy. But the budget items in terms of allocation is the lowest. So the first point of departure is to say that government must be deliberate in creating funding and resourcing and capacitating, firstly, the Department of Women and Youth, but particularly the NYDA. When we go to IDC as young people, which is the one that gives you these big transactions and is the one, by the way, that created all of these black billionaires that we are proud of today and say that we have people who are successful, it's through DFIs by government. If you go and check from 1994 until now, all these people that you guys praise, both black and whites, were supported and funded by IDC because they didn't have money to do any of those transactions. So we, as young people, we want our own IDC. We don't understand why there must be an NYDA that's kept at 200,000 when NYDA could be kept like NEF at 25 million. If I want to buy a KFC franchise, I must go to NYDA and say, I've been given this thing, I want to buy KFC franchise, give me the money. And you give me the money, I buy. That's what they did, by the way, for all of these so-called black billionaires and millionaires we have in South Africa. So you need to create deliberate funding mechanisms to ensure that young people can participate at a meaningful level in the economy and not reduce young people to a box-ticking exercise. Also, we want a procurement policy that speaks to the hopes and aspirations of the youth. When we say that, we mean that we don't want to be told, Minister, about 90-10 rule in government. So in government, there's a thing called 90-10 rule, which says that 90% of this contract depends on your pricing. And we know that when it comes to pricing in South Africa, only established white companies are going to outprice you all the time because they've been around for the past 30, 50, 100 years in terms of playing in the economy. So we must have empowerment programs within procurements of government to ensure that young people who are business owners who have a track record, even though they might be slyer than some young schoolman in terms of supply and delivery or whatever, is still prioritized through and it's not illegal to support that company, because currently, right now, under the current PFMA and MFMA, some of the empowerment programs have been deemed illegal and have been actually reversed in terms of some of those things. So we need strong political will to support youth development programs, both at a basic and high education level, ensure that there's free education. We are still going to push aggressively for that thing. 2, make sure that there's deliberate funding mechanisms, capacitate the NYDA. In fact, you must dissolve CIFA, CEDA, put it under NYDA so that you can have a bigger budget, because those entities, Minister, when we go to CIFA, we're told a lot of stories, but when we go to NYDA, things are very quick. Why? Because the NYDA is what young people know and what they believe in. So we must capacitate the NYDA and make sure that they are a fighting force in this struggle for reducing youth unemployment. I think I'll leave it there, but there's obviously other areas that we can touch on.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Wonga, for your inputs. I know that both of you said very interesting things, and the Minister actually wanted to make a comment or elaborate on something said by Mr. Tulisa. So if the mic can please go to the Minister for a few remarks.
Thank you very much. I just want to agree with you. One, there is, you know, the Western countries that have developed, in fact, all countries that have developed on everything that we have, which they didn't have, and they got it from us as a continent and as a country. And I think until we stop exporting raw material and we beneficiate it here, we process it here, if you export raw material, we are not only exporting that material, we are exporting jobs that are going to beneficiate and process it. We are exporting revenue Because by the time that you have exported as raw, comes back as a finished goods, it's very expensive, 10 times or even more than what you sold it for. And sometimes you can't even afford it. So, but these things, it's a struggle. The struggle continues. So we must all, and I can say this because I say it all the time. I'm not trying to buy your faces. Until we stop that, we will always be where we are. Because if you export raw material also, you don't become a price caller, you are a price taker. So I want to agree with you on that. I also want to agree that we must decide as a country whether we want as people-centered development or a profit-centered development. And if we want a profit-centered development, we'll do what you are saying. We'll never buy from you because, as you say, you'll never be able to get a less price than people who have economies of scale. But if we want a people-centered development, we will make sure that we buy from small and medium, but also the procurement is there now. The bill is going to go to Parliament because you know what the courts did. And in that, we have, in that bill, young people, women, persons with disability, and military veterans are going to be part of those that must be, have preferential procurement. So that is going to happen once that bill is passed. Then the percentages will be put in regulations. So that must happen if we are to empower young people. But young people must also be innovative. There are lots of people who are innovative, and I think we must also support them. And I'm happy that you know what our budget is. Because sometimes people ask me for big things. They want something that's bigger than our budget. You know our budget, when we have compensated employees and given and transferred what NYDA gets, about 70 or 70+% of our budget, then goes to the Gender Commission. By the time we have compensated employees, we have less than 80 million for the entire department. So we don't have a budget, basically. And I'm glad you know that. But we are still going to try and work with others. But we have also agreed with the president that part of the skills revolution, because we have agreed there must be a skills revolution. Because without skills, you can't drive, young people can't drive the economy of this country. So part of that is we're discussing with the Defense Force to contribute also to skilling young people. Because in the Defense Force, there is no skill you can find. There isn't. So the Defense Force can skill young people in anything and everything. So we have agreed that we must engage the Defense Force. We are in discussions with them right now. And we just need then government to give us the money so that that can happen. Even if it comes from CITAS or from where, that is one of the things that we are trying to do as a department that doesn't have money, as you have just said. And there are lots of other partners that we are trying to engage. I won't go into detail because of time. But we also expect young people to be active. Because ingane ngakhali vele mbelekweni.
Basho njalo. I'd like to bring you, Ayabonga, into the conversation. And can we actually please give her a round of applause? She's in grade 10, and she's representing young people. Yes. As a young person in grade 10, in high school, probably still figuring out what your aspirations are, and you're listening to all of our panelists talk about unemployment and all of these issues in our economy, what is your feeling about a future that you can create in South Africa? And do you feel as though enough is being done by government, by the private sector, to ensure that you and your students and your friends have a future in this country?
Well, thank you for giving me a chance. Well, I think we can change the future. I think that we can make difference. I think that we can make the country more richer than it is by, yes, as Mal explained, like by manufacturing our own goods. Yes, by not giving away our, by not giving away our minerals, like doing it for us.
Yeah.
Yes, and making the country richer. Yes, and in education, like chances increasing, it can work for us, like more opportunities for us.
Yeah.
To go to varsities, and when finishing varsities, we want chances to work, we want jobs. Yes, so like economy of South Africa is very important to us. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And to bring you in, Karen, as well, if the mic could just go to Karen, please. To bring you into the conversation as well, what do you think needs to be done between government and the private sector to ensure that there's hope for young people, whether they want to go into business or find a job in our economy?
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. So I'll just give you a background on so I'm from a company called Charge Your Globe. So that's also basically us giving ourselves a chance because of unemployment and everything that's going on. We started this, as you said, Mama, we need to be innovative. So we are a wellness and fitness company, which is something that has been dominated by men for the longest time. And as you said, women have now come to the forefront of sports and all of that. So touching on what governments can do with private sectors is, as you said, the budget is not enough. The NYDA has funded us before, and that kind of got us on our feet. So we are grateful for that. But going further and trying to grow our business and actually employ people, we do need more funding, but that hasn't been possible because of, as you said, restrictions of the budget. So what the government can actually do is look in and not just, as you said, you're not buying face, but I feel like for most of the time it's always been, we are helping, but we don't really see what we're getting helped with. We followed guidelines, we have followed everything we needed to do, but still opportunities are not there. So another thing is creating opportunities. As you said, we also can't fight the big companies that are there. We have big fitness companies that we are also trying to get into things with, but it's so difficult to go there because they have backing, we still a growing company, and nobody really gives a chance to people that don't have that criteria that's been around for a lot of years. We've been around for 7 years, and in 7 years, we're still trying, we're growing. Every day is a struggle, but we feel like with the government's help into the little businesses that we say, as you say, women and sports and arts and culture, it's something that you guys can actually come into and help us develop as well. Innovation, and we are active, the youth is active, it's not like we're just sitting and doing nothing, but when you're getting pushed down time and time again, it kind of defeats your hope and faith for something that's going to come and happen. So as much as we try, let's all try and meet each other halfway and not just put it on a piece of paper and say, we did this, let's actually implement what we say we're going to do. Because as she said, the economy is important for them, and they are going to leave high school, go to varsity, but it doesn't help if they're sitting at home like I did for the longest time, not having a job after completing my degree, you know? Sure. So, yeah, I think I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. And the last question I'm going to ask is one that's going to touch on technology, because it's something that the NYDA as well is planning to address this Youth Month. And I'm an economist by training, and we're taught that an economy grows a lot through investments into technology, research and development to create more opportunities for people, to ensure that businesses are more efficient. And so I'll pose the question to you, Minister. In terms of technology for young people, for women, for people with disabilities, how can we ensure that we actually make an investment into technology such that South Africa can become the next Singapore, the next China, that actually adds value into the global economy? And how can we make sure that young people are the ones leading that as opposed to big established corporates?
Thank you very much. I think it has to start from school. Because you can't meet technology when we are now trying to create a business. We must ensure that from school, kids are taught, even from primary school, they must get used to technology. Then higher education, of course. But there is also in science and technology, there is an innovation fund. And I think our young people must apply for that fund for things that they want to do in terms of technology and innovation. We also partner with other countries, with other companies. For instance, before I came here, I was meeting with Samsung because they do partner with some of the schools. They do partner with some of the universities. And I'm also trying to get them to expand because there are universities that don't have faculties of ICT. And I want them to also assist there. So I think we all need to do that. But also, we need to be innovative in a way that we also develop our own technologies.
Yeah.
Because at that moment, we are just consumers. We are not really developing our own technology. And I think that's something we must also support when technology. And when we do develop technology, we must also commercialize it.
Yeah.
You know, it breaks my heart. I think we had a car here, an electric car. Some of you might remember, it was called Jewel. Manufactured and innovated here. It was not commercialized. Now we are going to be buying electric cars, other people's electric cars. So I think commercialization is also important. And we need, as a country, to get into that. But to encourage young people to innovate, we are in September going to have awards. Those awards, we call them 40 under 40. We're not 35, we're 40 under 40. So you still have a chance. Those awards actually do happen on the continent. This year they were held here, but it was Africa 40 under 40. There were 7 South Africans who won. Yes, and the overall winner of those 40 under 40 was a South African. So we have decided we must have a South African chapter of that 40 under 40. And we are going to be doing it with NYDA and also the ones who are running the continental one, who are partnering with them. Just to inspire young people and to recognize those who are innovating, but inspire those who might still want to innovate. So, yes, we are trying to encourage. It's not only in technology, it's in business, in many sectors. But technology underpins a lot of the things that we want to do, whether you're in agriculture, whether you are in science, whether you are anywhere,
Yeah.
technology underpins that. So I'm encouraging you to come up with, not only use what is there out there, but also to innovate and create our own.
Yeah.
But also, I want to be controversial here, but when we look at technology, we must look at it and be critical and accept what we think is good for us. We are a country with unemployment, right? Shouldn't we be encouraging more young people to be employed rather than replacing them with robots? It's just asking. Should we be using robots as a country? Because remember, where robots were innovated, it was because they didn't have the labor force. They were trying to deal with their situation where they had less labor force. Their pyramid, their population pyramid is upside down. There are more older people than young people. Ours is the reverse. Should we be using robots instead of human beings? It's a question. They will say no, it will be more competitive for profit, but what would be happening to human beings? That's a question number one. And robots, they don't pay tax. So, if we put robots everywhere, who will be paying tax for education, for health, for all those things? So I'm saying, as we accept technology, we must we must look at it critically and say, what do we need? What does it do for us? Is it helping us in our situation, not in what is happening elsewhere, but here? But I'm leaving that with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And on that note, I'm going to open the conversation to our audience. I will take a maximum of 3 questions, as I was instructed to do so. So if you have a question, please do raise up your hand and I will note you. And can I please request that we have a roving mic for those with questions? I will take your hand, sir, with the cap. Noted. Please do state your name, where you're from.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's already the afternoon. My name is Monono Mabusela, and I'm a social entrepreneur. I own a company with a few friends of mine. It's called Stick Up. We also run the Box Shop Online Radio, which is a youth incubation platform that gives young people the chance to enter into the podcasting space. I'm also a director of the Queen Ethindaba Foundation and also the director of Matekwane Soweto. We hosted the first Cannabis Festival in education, awareness, and development. So my question is for the 2 gentlemen there, because you had spoken about the NYDA, right? Okay, just to tell you about my own personal journey. I started entrepreneurship when I was like 20 years old. Now I'm 35, right? I went to Umsobomvu. I wrote my business plan, did the financials with my own handwriting, right? And I got someone to type it for me because I could not afford a computer. It was during the recession, right? So this is my last year as a young person, and it's very important because I've been trying to apply with the NYDA. And even now, for example, I've got my phone up and it's giving me error messages. So the whole thing about, when someone approaches you and they're like, listen, we've got something that's very pertinent that we want to present, and then you ask them that, where is your reference number? I have pretty much all the documents. Me and my team have been on the ground, and also thank you to Councillor Lefa Modise, who has been very instrumental since he came into office last year, because he's been actually helping us physically as a youth to get people like yourselves on the platform. So how do we go about with the technological errors, right, that are from systems of governance, right? It's the NYDA first. And also, I've had a problem with my CSD. Like, if many of you don't know, the Treasury has a central supply database. Every time I try to renew my application, there's an error. So for me, it clearly states that there's a technological error from the government's perspective, especially when engaging with the young people, because we should not be facing, we live in the 21st century, we've got the fourth industrial revolution, but we still are facing technological issues when it comes to applying and also getting approved. So what is the NYDA or any of the organizations that are here, what are they doing actually to make sure that the technology is simplified, even for someone as my young self who went to Umsovomvu, right, and got rejected because I was told I had to go to the CIPC and I didn't have money. I was a young person. I was from Soweto and I didn't have money. So how can we address the technological issues of the platforms that are not necessarily conducive or user-friendly to the young people? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. I will note the gentleman with the glasses, and then I would like to take one lady to conclude the Q&A. So if there are any brave ladies, please do put up your hands. But you can ask your question, sir.
Hello. My name is Isaac Mkize. I'm involved with the gentleman who just spoke in the development of young people in 139. I also run my own foundation called the Africa Creative Arts Foundation. I hear that the NYDA has been alluding that there are a lot of opportunities for young people. I've never seen any of those activations because we have an office in Maponya Mall. It is not doing anything for young people. I know Nkosinati, who used to run that office. We would go to Nkosinati and say, Nkosinati, we have challenges regarding us receiving funding or seed funding for our own activations for our programs. We would be taken back and forth. And I heard you say that young people, they would ask you that there are a lot of they are not receiving any opportunities, and then you would ask them where is the code and all of that. But I think that NYDA has been politicized in a way that it doesn't favor a very disempowered young black child who is trying by all means, who has been neglected by the system that was built that is not in favor of them, to ensure that the township development of has favor to a young person who doesn't know even who stays in informal settlement, who stays in hostels, who stays in rural areas. So and also I want to direct also my question to the minister, Dr. Nkosazana Zuma. I know you recently have been placed in the position of being a minister for youth, for women, youth, and people with disability. I would say that I'm glad that, because I know you are always upfront when it comes to your approach when you are in the office. I want to say that your approach that you are bringing on forth in terms of including the military, I'm glad that you are bringing that into existence, because every young person shouldn't be absent in terms of job opportunities, skills, and all of that. to ensure that that drive force with the military, it is happening. Every young person, when they are doing matric, let them go and serve in the military. That will ensure that the mechanism that you want to use to ensure that there is a skill development, there is a job opportunities for young people, will be activated. All the young people should be ensured that when they are in matric, you go straight to military. That will activate all these bottlenecks that we have as young people, that there is no job employment and all of that. Other countries, if ever they are doing it, why is South Africa not doing it? Because you would find a long queue of young people wanting to apply to enter military. It favors people who are in position, who are putting their families and who are putting all those, I think that nepotism needs to stop with the people who are working for the government, because it is the one that is creating a lot of bottlenecks when it comes to the employment of young people in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll take the question from the young student on my left.
Greeting to you all. My name is Neole Kalakala. I'm from Emma Twaleni Secondary School. My question is, technology is getting more advanced. Jobs are getting less. What is the solution from there? Because soon we are going to finish school. So I'm worried what is gonna happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think a lot of the questions have been directed to Bonga and you, Mr. Ndlela, and the minister. So I'll start with Bonga, and then we'll move on to Mr. Tulisa, and then I think the minister can conclude the panel for us.
Okay, no, thank you. I think before I answer my question, just a disclaimer that I don't work for the NYDA, nor do I work for government, nor have any aspirations of working for any of the two. But nonetheless, you know, we've raised these challenges with, especially Tulisa, he knows himself, where we said, look, the process in which the NYDA embarked on to say that they want to digitalize their platforms was an incredibly exclusionary process, in as much as there were lots of challenges before this process of the technology and the website that existed. We said to them, allow for walk-ins, create branches of the NYDA that are well capacitated, that have HR staff, administrative staff, where a young person can enter today and leave knowing whether or not the application is successful. That's the type of NYDA that we want to see across South Africa. Because when you say that young people must go on a website to Lisa and upload CVs and do all these things, when I'm in Kandla, where I'm from, where there's no network, infrastructure challenges, where there's no data, it becomes difficult for me to access some services, the NYDA. But the NYDA must make sure that every village, every township in South Africa, there is an NYDA branch where young people can walk in and access our resources at NYDA. And that can only be done through deliberate political will from Treasury, from Cabinet. So, Minister, we can't isolate you as well from this crisis, because unfortunately or fortunately you sit on Cabinet. And in Cabinet we expect you to convey that young people are saying the NYDA is not well resourced, and therefore Minister of Finance, President, Deputy President, other ministers, how do we capacitate my ministry, but the NYDA, it is able to have these branches? Because I'm sure region by region, branch or NYDA, I'm not sure the numbers, but I know it's not enough. So as a cabinet minister who represents young people, who represents women, people living with disabilities, those are some of the concerns we expect you to raise when you get there, because we understand they are not made by you. And by the way, the NYDA didn't create these challenges that they face. they have the best intentions in the world, but unfortunately they don't have the money to do any of the things that you want them to do at the scale that you want them to do them. That's the unfortunate thing in terms of how our fiscus has been arranged. So what we're calling for is a well-capacitated NYDA that can have branches that have walk-ins, that have staff, that can process applications quickly, efficiently. You leave, you know that you are granted or you are rejected. Not this type of what we are in now. So I think I'll just leave it there.
Try the other one.
I'm being sabotaged by Bonga. No, I think let me start by saying, as a general comment, the two specific questions from the two gentlemen, in particular the one that relates to IT and how the challenges we're facing at the moment with the website. I'll ask our regional manager, Uriboni, to assist, and Maspumala uzokhuluma nawe specifically on that, so that we make it easier. And part of the reason why we have these kind of events is because we are reaching out to young people, anecdotal experiences, so that we could just resolve it here. Just resolve it here. Maybe let me give a background of why we moved, and I know myself and Bongani differ on this, why we moved to the digital platform. My brother, you would know, who submitted before the recession. I don't want to say where I was before the recession, probably somewhere in high school. The paper-based system had so many risks. Some of your documents could be lost. There could have been a flooding at a branch, your documents destroyed or whatever. I mean, there were so many things that were against the paper-based system. So when we moved to the digital system, the idea was to allow for the security of information and the ability to trace where exactly the application is at any given point in time. Obviously, those things are also linked to key performance indicators and performance management targets that we as a board of directors have to do on the staff that work for the NYDA. Now, that is how the digital system works for us in order to be able to do our jobs even better. But we were also aware of the challenges that Bongani was talking about. I mean, mina ngwaseMpendle nje, you know, ekhaya nje mangisekhaya, there's no way ngizoba ne 3G at home, you know. Ngizoshaya nje ngo 2 bars, there's no way I'll have access to any of the internet services. We then, in those circumstances, have NYDA branches which are equipped with computers, and they have staff who can allow you to come, whether you're doing NYDA work or you're doing general work. Obviously, there are certain websites that we've locked, your Instagram and whatnot, but any other website that could help a young person. So it works so much like an internet cafe. So you walk in, and these branches exist at the moment in 44 of the 52 districts right around the country. There are only 8 areas where we do not exist, and we are in the process of addressing some of the challenges such as securing space and being able to, from an HR point of view, allow ourselves to augment our resources and then be able to afford that. Because some of the things that maybe we don't say is that from a practical point of view, as an agency, we use 90% of our budget on programs, meaning service delivery targets. Only 10% of our budget from the allocated transfers goes into staff compensation and all these other things. And this is public information that, as now, we are going to go into July. We are going to close the audit cycle. We're going to announce and publish an annual report, and you will see from this. These are not numbers I'm just, these are numbers that you could go to the NYDA's last year's annual report, you will see them. So contrary to the belief and the well-held narrative that we are a gravy train of some sort, we're just out there dishing out salaries. There's no such a thing. We know and we appreciate that our resources are limited, and we do, engage with the minister, we engage with private sector, and we engage with many other partners to try and augment our resources. And that process is aided by how we manage the little resources we have. So the concern, my brother, you have about the Maponya Mall again, the RM of Gauteng would probably deal with that a little bit closer, because part of her responsibilities is to make sure that there's performance management with the district offices. So that falls within that, and part of my responsibility is to make sure there's performance management, the chief executive. So my young sister, your question is very important. And from a personal point of view, I want to say to you, as you make a decision of where your career field is going to go, take note of this. If you were in 2008, around the time of the recession, if you were studying at the University of Technology for a banking management or an accounting diploma, you were likely to leave there and go and work at a bank and become a teller. Now, banks now are one technology away from never needing a teller. And that technology is an ATM that can deposit a coin. And I'm aware FNB is advanced at the moment with that research. So as soon as there is technology that will allow you to deposit coins, because right now you can get your bank statement verified, you can deposit money at an ATM, you can do everything at an ATM, except to deposit coins. So once they get that right, it means whoever is studying now for banking technology is not going to have a job. Now, where is the job in that now? The job is not going to be in being a teller. The job is going to be in programming the software, in building the hardware of this machine, and in servicing, either be it with cyber technology to protect the information that it goes through there. But the jobs are now moving to IT. It doesn't mean there are no jobs. It means maybe we are not studying what we should be studying. I'm a graduate of UKZN. There's a course, Honorable Minister, which you might be aware of, Bachelor of Medical Sciences. You are not a nurse. You are not a doctor. You are just in between. The best you can be with that is go and work as a lecturer. There are many such similar causes. When back in the day we were in the student representatives, we did ask the rationale around this particular cause. Why are we studying this? And former President Mbeki puts it better than me when he says, you say you are a master of theology. To assist who? With what? Because we all know the Bible. We all can read the Bible. So I think for my sister who's in grade 10, the thinking must really be around the studying for the jobs of the future. Looking at where we are, and I'll personally say, in technology, the jobs now are moving. I mean, even your McDonald's. McDonald's is now almost automated. But where are the jobs of McDonald's? They are behind the scenes in the people who are going to be maintaining that software, because the software has to be maintained. But if we don't have that skill, McDonald's South Africa is going to have to contract an IT company in the States to be able to do that remotely, because with any desk, you can access any computer anywhere, wherever you are. You could be in the States because there's no skill here. So maybe let's look beyond what we are, what we know to be the careers of today, and try and look into the careers of tomorrow. And that starts with the right kind of career guidance, which leads me to my last point. all of us who are my age and probably slightly older than I am, have a sibling, a child, or someone who is the age of my sister at the moment to my left, who needs some form of guidance in making the right kind of decisions around their career. Ask yourself, what kind of conversations are you having with umshana wako, ingane yako, your younger sibling? What is the quality of these conversations? What intergenerational information are you passing on to the younger generation? Does it help them to avoid the mistakes that you made? Or you are just simply saying, hambe yongilandela this, go and buy that, do this. Is it more educational? And I think for me, we seem to be speaking about everything, government this, government that, but we fail to remember that we spend most of our times around our families, and where we come from shapes what we become insofar as the kind of support we have. And that is the difference between African families and our other counterparts. The nature of conversations that they have amongst each other. Of course, some have more access to more resources, but just look at the information you have now. Who are you telling it to? And is it to assist them in order for them not to make the same mistakes that you made? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Am I audible? Yeah. Maybe starting from where he left off. I think technology must be an enabler, but not an excluder. At the moment, we must use both, because we saw during COVID how many kids were excluded because they didn't have access to technology. So we can't have just one. Until we all have access to technology, we cannot say our system can only work on technology, because it means lang phuma khona, abantu, young people are not having access to NYDA. So I think you must spread it out to all the districts. And maybe you should have partnerships also with municipalities where you can, to extend your reach, rather than saying only where there is an NYDA office. But if you have partnerships and you can extend so that people can go to a municipality to put their form and it can be uploaded and so on, then you can have a wider reach until everyone has 5G or 3G. And I also agree with you that we must look at careers of the future. But at that same time, technology can be a big enabler if we use it properly. For instance, there are schools where they are struggling with maths teachers or science teachers. But if we were ensuring that we're ensuring that we can have interactive classrooms, then we can have one maths teacher who can actually give lessons to 100 schools. And then maybe once a week he can visit so that the kids know physically who this teacher is. So I think we can use technology in many ways, even in hospitals where you don't have a radiologist to read your x-ray, but you can load it to a hospital that has a radiologist and can read it. So I think it has to be used as an enabler, but we must be careful that it is not, it doesn't exclude other people. In terms of what has been said about us, yes, we try. I mean, okay, I'm new in this portfolio, but we try to get resources for young people, for women also, because the majority of the people in this country are young and they are women as well. And of course, persons with disability and everybody else. But we need help from all of you as well to push that. We must have a budget. Yes. But coming to what the colleague there about taking everybody to the military, the reason we're not doing that, we're wanting it to be, one, voluntary, two, to be mainly skills, except those who are recruited directly to be part of the Defense Force. One, because we know in this country, they will take us to court and we'll lose if we make it compulsory. They will take us to court and we will lose. So it must be voluntary. But I think if it's voluntary and people see the usefulness of it, many people will do it. Because once you are in the you are trained by the Defense Force, even if they are training you to be a software developer, they will also train you to stand to attention when the national anthem is being played. They will also train you to be patriotic, even if they are training you just to be a software developer or anything. So, yes, it would be good if we could do that, but we can't. I must be upfront with you. We won't be able to do it. We will just be staying in court forever if we try to do it that way. That's why we want it to be voluntary. Just as a last, the nominations for the 40 under 40 are open, and they are closing on the 15th of June. So if you want to nominate people, please do for the 40 under 40. NYDA is part of that. So I was hoping that they would have been talking about it to young people. I'm surprised that I'm the only one talking about it. He says he wasn't talking because he was hoping to be nominated. But please spread the word. But thank you very much. I think that this is very helpful. And I hope that the young people in school will have the hope that, and I'm glad that she said, we will change the situation. She didn't say, we will wait until someone changes it for us. So that attitude must be an agent for change. And we must be the change that you want to see. So thank you very much. And thanks for allowing me to participate, even though I'm not young.
Can we please give my panel a round of applause? Thank you so much for being a brilliant audience and engaging and asking questions. Of course, the program does continue to run. If you are on social media, please use the hashtags, hashtag Youth Day 2023 and hashtag Youth Month 2023 and make your contribution to the conversation. On that note, I will hand over to the program director, and thank you very much.
Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much to our panelists. Our panel discussion was very engaging. It touched on matters that really do affect all of us. And we are grateful that we also had an audience that felt the need to also raise some of the issues that they have. So thank you, thank you, thank you. To our moderator, she did so well. Can we give her a round of applause? Okay, I think my thing is falling apart. Now, okay, let me just take this out. It's fighting with me. It's not technology. This is the old one. We need new one. Okay, to the stage now, I'd like to welcome the chairperson of ENYDA, Ms. Asanda Luwaqa. She will then outline what the Youth Month program is going to be looking like. Can we give her a round of applause, please? Yes.
Aye, abantu abachaye. Aye, abantu abachaye. Nkosi mphathi nkqubo. Allow me to go through formalities before we go through the program for Youth Month. Mandithathe lithuba ndibulise uminister wethu, umama uDr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. Deputy Minister uMama Nocwawe Mafu. MEC for Sports in the Free State, MEC Dimakatso Mahasa, Deputy Chairperson of the NYDA Board of Directors, Ms. Karabo Mohale, fellow board members present, the CEO of the SAMAFCO, which is the Solomon Mahlangu Scholarship College, Solomon Mahlangu Freedom College, apologies. We have a Solomon Mahlangu Scholarship Fund at the NYDA, by the way. We are joined also by Mr. Opa Muloto from the June 16 Foundation, the Director for Public Affairs, Communications and Sustainability of Coca-Cola, President of SAIC, Councillor Uceba Wetu, who welcomed us this morning, Councillor Lefa Mulise, members of the media, but most importantly, to the young people here present this afternoon. So the NYDA, we are officially launching Youth Month today in Soweto, and we will be commemorating Youth Month under the theme, Accelerating Youth Economic Emancipation for a Sustainable Future. Now, I think today we would have spoken a lot about why it is that we are here, the freedoms that we are celebrating as a result of the sacrifices that were made by the youth of yesteryears. But I think it's also incumbent and it's important for us to have an appreciation that political freedom will mean nothing in the absence of economic freedom. And it is precisely why the NYDA has its coexistence, to ensure that we capacitate the youth with the necessary economic opportunities so that the struggles and the sacrifices that the youth of yesterdays will not be in vain. Now, whilst we can provide the youth with the opportunities, there's this character that is innate amongst young people. We say that the youth is resilient, we say that the youth is energetic, and we've got a lot to offer, which is correct. But I think we can also agree that whilst, we are saying young people must be resilient, and that resilience will mean nothing unless we are able to create that necessary conducive environment for that resilience to be able to be translated into tangible solutions that will ultimately change the material conditions for the better. Now, there's also this, we would have also spoken about as young people, and correctly so, what it is that we expect from the government of the day. But, Minister would have spoken about placing young people with a particular responsibility so that we are able to say, yes, whilst there is an expectation from government, but equally as young people, we need to take it upon ourselves to be those agents of change and to make use and grab the opportunities that exist. Now, I'm going to just deviate a bit because I'd also just like to have a bite on, some of the discussions from the panel this morning. Now, linked to this expectation versus a responsibility that we have, there's this idea that, youth are not, or there's this youth apathy amongst the participatory processes that exist. And we also need to encourage young people, whilst yes, that is a reality, we need to encourage young people to participate in the democratic processes that our forebears fought for. We are currently in a participatory democracy. Now, what does that mean in practical reality? We've got your South African Youth Economic Council, right? That made mention about the procurement processes that exist and how they exclude young people. But there was also that preferential procurement policy framework amendment bill that is currently in Parliament. How many of us can actively say we've contributed, we've made our submission so that the outlook of that particular legislation is reflective of what we want? How many of us can say that? There's not a lot. We equally have an NYDA amendment bill that is currently out for public comments. How many of us are participating in that? How many, honestly, these are just some of the few legislations that are currently in Parliament. But we must equally, as young people, take that responsibility to ensure that, like I said, those legislation reflect what it is that we want. But not just that, we're going into the national elections next year. How many of us are registered to vote as young people? I mean, where we are, some of us who are part of a movement in 2019, where we are saying Muchapalong, hashtag Muchapalong. And what came out of that particular deliberate and intentional approach was that we've seen many young speakers in your respective spaces, your provincial governments, your local government. We are seeing many young councillors, we're seeing many members of parliament who are youth. But that wouldn't have been the reality had we not, one, consolidated ourselves, mobilized ourselves, been coordinated, and actively worked towards that participatory democracy so that we are able to say that the outlook of the government of the day is a reflection of young people. We've got many young people who are deployed and who are representatives of government because of the active and the activism that we carried. So in that spirit, we also want to encourage the youth to say, participate in these processes so that we're not left outside, so that we're not sitting and, being the armchair critics, but we're saying that we're able to make a voice and the outlook of that particular process is a reflection of what we've done. Now, enough with the lecture. I was given a task, Program Director, and I apologize. I deviated a bit, but I just felt that it was really necessary for us to speak about some of these issues. But going back to the task at hand, I was given a task to officially launch and outline the program for Youth Month. Now, there's a saying that, we need to start nurturing the revolutionaries that will reflect the class of 1976. Now, born out of that understanding, the NYDA would have deliberately been intentional about ensuring that the programs of Youth Month and going forward are a reflection of what we want. We want to see many opportunities presented for young people. We want to see youth that are active, that are involved in their own developmental trajectory. Because when we say nothing about us without us, that's exactly what we mean. So with that, I'll speak to just some of the key programs, but it is not limited to what I will be outlining. We want to also encourage young people to visit our website, to visit our social media pages, where the entire program for the month will be outlined. But just to speak on some of the key programs for the month, we'll start off with today, obviously, where we are officially launching Youth Month. We will also be embarking on a road show in partnership with our SAYouth.mobi. Now, the SAYouth.mobi is part of our National Pathway Management Network, where we coin it as a network of networks, where we bring opportunities closer to young people. Now, our platform is a zero-rated platform, meaning you don't need to have data to access that platform. And what that enables young people is that you are able to be linked with prospective employees. We partnered with multiple stakeholders, government, private sector, and work opportunities are all available on our platform. So I want to encourage every one of us, log on. It's sayouth.mobi. We've got our great comms team who is readily available to also assist should you have challenges with logging and registering on that platform. So we'll be embarking on a nationwide roadshow going into provinces. But we also want to emphasize, Minister, that we want to go into the most rural of communities, because when we are speaking about the technological advances, what we don't want to do as an agency is to have a situation where young people get left behind. Now, we are aware that young people in your rural far-flung areas, they might not have access to a gadget, so our roadshows are deliberate and intentional in targeting those rural communities so that we leave no young person behind. Linked to our Youth Month program, we'll also be embarking on career expos, where we'll be focusing on career opportunities that exist in the digital economy. In Limpopo, for instance, we'll be launching a youth in business competition where youth that are in businesses will be conducting almost similar to a Dragon's Den, where you are given 60 seconds elevator pitch. The winning pitch will be awarded. First prize will get 50,000, second prize 30, third prize will be given 10,000 rand on the spot. So we'll be launching that in Limpopo. But we'll also be assisting, because we also understand that within the youth cohort, we've got different segments of youth. We've got youth that are in business that I've just spoken about, youth that are wanting work opportunities that I've spoken about through our sayouth.mobi, but we also have young people who are wanting to advance themselves in the spaces of the higher education. Now, we will be embarking on an online platform where we will be assisting, particularly your grade 10s and 11s, and capacitating them to be ready for the 2024 academic year. So what does that mean? We've partnered with your NSFAS, we've partnered with relevant departments and private entities that have bursary opportunities, institutions of higher learnings, how young people can apply, what are the courses that are available that are linked to the economy of the future. I mean, we've spoken now about, there are certain courses now that are not necessarily conducive for our current economy. So we will be embarking on that as well. We'll also be having a State of the Youth Affairs dialogue that will be taking place in the Free State. And then in Free State, we'll be having various activations, your Career and Opportunities Expo, and then obviously on June 16, we are launching Youth Month with the Career and Opportunities Expo. We'll also be launching the various partnerships that we have been able to solicit. Now, we've spoken today about our budgetary limitations as the NYDA, and in fact as government. So what we rely on heavily is our ability to lobby on behalf of youth for additional funding. So we will be announcing the various partnerships that we have with your CETAs, so that ultimately, where we are saying we've got budgetary constraints, we will have our sister entity that is equally coming on board to assist us where we find ourselves short. We'll also be launching, as we know, the month of July will be the BRICS Summit. So we'll be hosting a BRICS Youth Summit, and towards the end of June, we will be having a media conferencing where we'll be announcing the BRICS Youth Summit. And lastly, but I think Minister would have taken my job on this one, the 40 Under 40 Awards. That is something that has officially kicked off, and we want to encourage every young person that is in the space of innovation to either apply yourself or to nominate a young person whom you think deserves or should be getting the necessary recognition in the space of innovation. So, Minister, we are launching that, and it's something that we'll be embarking upon with or in partnership with our department, and ensuring that, those young people that are doing great and innovative work in their respective sectors are profiled and are given that necessary exposure. So, Kalo Mazwi, I will reaffirm, we are an agency that is for young people. Visit our website, www.nyda.gov.za. We are active on our social media pages, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You can just follow NYDA and you'll have access to the entire Youth Month program. Like I said, this is just a glimpse of what to expect. So between now and end of June, we will be on the ground. We will be in all provinces and ensuring that the agency comes down to young people and in areas where it is needed the most. Kalo Mazwi, thank you very much, and thank you for your insightful participation and for your involvement in today. And yeah, thank you.
Another round of applause. Thank you so much, Chairperson. I will say this because you'll understand it. Wasibeta, she was calling us to order, basically. With regards to, as young people, we have a mandate and we have a responsibility. Change doesn't really happen on Twitter, guys. If you do not understand the legislative policies, and if you do not participate and make sure that you make your inputs in all these different bills, then things will just happen and you will come back and still complain. But let's talk on spaces where relevant information and participation is needed. But with that said, we've almost come to the end of our program. But before we close, we have Ms. Alexander Proctor from the NYDA board, who will then give us a vote of thanks before we leave.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. Thank you for calling me on. I've been given 5 minutes to sum up an incredibly important day with so many amazing speakers. So it's quite a hard task, but I'm going to try my best. It helps that I speak very fast, but I'll try and slow it down because I get a lot of trouble for how fast I speak sometimes. What an important month for our country, and at such a crucial time for our country. I'm glad that today we paused to acknowledge the past, and as the youth, critically, we pay attention to the future. And I want us to quickly talk about the future. A lot of what we spoke about today was about tech and 4IR. And the reason why I found this quite interesting is because in my day job, I'm actually a tech startup founder. I started a startup when I was a student at UCT, and I've been doing that ever since. And in tech circles, the future feels so exciting, especially in things like artificial intelligence, in crypto. It feels like things are just happening and it's amazing. And I often say that the future's already here. It's just not evenly distributed. And so the point of today, of this month, and of government is to ensure the distribution of this future to the youth. So continue to hold government to account. As we've spoken about, next year is our national election. And this is why it is critical for us to hold government to account. Our Minister, Dr. Dlamini Zuma, spoke about the responsibility of the youth, and I could not agree more. It is critical that we register to vote and we keep holding government to account. The youth has the power. Just like in 1976, the youth has the power. So now getting to why I was called up here today to say thank you. I want to say thank you so much to all the participants, to the panelists, to the speakers, to the attendees, and to the organizers. We really appreciate it to take the time to come together today and to acknowledge the start of this month. But mostly, I want to say thank you to the youth of South Africa. I often say that South Africa feels like a miracle. And so I want to say thank you to the youth for being the hope of this country. This day, this month, and this country is for you. Thank you so much.
Masibonge. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our program. And just to utter what Ms. Alexander was saying, We are grateful for the time that you took to be here, to come here, to participate. We do not take it lightly. You've given us the most important resource, which is your time and your commitment, and we appreciate that. And with that said, we've come to the end of our program. Izandla, please, Scelani Shaliza. We will allow our dignitaries to first lead the way and go out of the room, back to the holding room. That's where the lunch will be served. And because it's Youth Month, and we are celebrating young people, lunch will be served, but we are asking, can the scholars be the first in line to take food? Origanja? Yeah, bo. With that said, just to take from what Karabo always says, I know I can be what I want to be. If I work hard in it, I'll be what I want to be. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, thank you, thank you. You are much appreciated. Bye.